Koliko je lepo posmatrati svet sa visine.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
Zaista bih mogao da zamislim, dobri moji, da se nešto treba uraditi za viši cilj. Ali da li viši cilj daje za pravo da jedan čovek na ovoj zemlji propati na putu do njega? Da ne govorimo kakav bi odgovor dobili kada bi umesto jednog stavili milion onih koji nisu dovoljno jaki da psihički izguraju dolazak te četvrte industrijske revolucije. Zamislite samo da se svi ponašamo shodno tome, da žrtvujemo druge za naš viši cilj. Da li to zaista mora tako? Da li je moguće da ne postoji drugačiji i bezbolniji način? Očigledno nije. Slušajući njih, da ih nazovem globaliste, iako podele postoje samo za nas, naivne, oni jadni navodno pokušavaju da urazume ovaj svet, ali on nikako da se urazumi. I kada se upoznamo sa činjenicom ko stoji iza Svetskog ekonomskog foruma i shvatimo da stoje apsolutno sve najveće korporacije sveta, postavlja se pitanje ko je taj koji njih koči sve ovo vreme i zbog koga to stalno kukaju. Ispada da jedini koji njih sprečavaju da ostvare svoje snove smo mi, zar ne? Ali mi znamo da je to glupost, jer nas niko ništa nikada pitao nije. Pa o čemu se onda ovde radi? Jako prosto, dobri moji. Radi se o tome da je moć stvar prokletstva. A kada za isti sto stavite sve najmoćnije, sve što ćete dobiti kao proizvod je interes ili novo prokletstvo. Gde će se svi naravno složiti da se globalizam mora uvesti, ali će čim odu u svoje fabrike da okrenu ćurak i da razmisle kako oni mogu najviše da se okoriste od svega toga. A da ne bi ispalo kao da ne poštuju dogovor, na kraju se svi oni slože da unište one manje i slabije od njih. I kao proizvod mi gledamo svet okolo nas koji je u potpunom disbalansu i haosu, pogotovo 2020. godine. Vidjet ćete kako u govoru koji sam preveo istoričar i globalista pokušava da urazumi svet, da je kucnuo poslednji čas da se opametimo. Ponovo kao da se obraća nama, a ne sebi samom, pošto ne postoji taj koji nije partner i član Svetskog ekonomskog foruma osim nas, običnih smrtnika. Glavno pitanje je jesmo li mi realno uopšte, kao civilizacija, spremni za ovakvu promenu. Zato je ovaj današnji video važan, jer kada poslušate tabor globalista, a objasnit ćemo tokom videa da ne postoje globalisti i suverenisti, već samo jedno te isto, elita, koja želi da testira sve naše granice izdržljivosti i granice izdržljivosti ovoga sveta. Danima sam preslušavao konvencije i promo videe Svetskog ekonomskog foruma i nisam mogao da se otmem utisku da niko od njih, realno niko, ne brine o ovoj pošasti koja nas je pokorila. Što je jako zanimljivo, jer nama slušajući medije sve deluje kao Armagedon. Što više, oni je uglavnom pominju u kontekstu primjera na osnovu kojeg bi mi ljudi trebalo da se probudimo i pripremimo za četvrtu promenu u koju nas je odveo žeđ za imperijalizmom koji je nakon digitalizacije nazvan globalizmom. Po njima je toliko važno da se spremimo za veliki reset, kao da se postavlja pitanje vodimo li mi rat sa zaista najopasnijim bacilom ikada ili se samo pripremamo za novu globalnu industrijalizaciju. Ako je ovo zavera, onda glava više nije na vrhu ramena. Međutim, ono što mali broj ljudi zna, i ovo je jako važno i zanimljivo, jesu izjave čelnika ove organizacije, koje trebamo shvatiti, ili barem ja tako mislim, jako ozbiljno, jer su već dosta puta predvidjeli sve što nam se desilo.
We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
Zanimljivo, zar ne? Naravno, ovo ne mora ništa da znači. Međutim, sećamo se da je i događaj 201 najavljivao potencijalnu pandemiju svega par meseci pre nego što se zaista i desila. A jedan od organizatora bio je upravo Svetski ekonomski forum. Međutim, iznenađenjima nikada kraja. Pojavljuje se još jedan od govornika organizacije koji pominje, pazite, prilično sličnu stvar, što je već pomalo čudno.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the camp. I believe that there will be another crisis. It will be more significant, and we need to actually start preparing for that now. When we do see this next crisis, it will be faster than what we've seen with COVID. The exponential growth rate will climb, be much steeper. The impact will be greater. And as a result, the economic and social implications will be even more significant.
Hajde da razmislimo objektivno. Ovdje je reč o cyber napadu. Ko bi uopšte mogao izvesti taj cyber napad na elektromreže, avioindustrije ili pak nekog tehnološkog giganta? Pa sigurno ne hakeri iz kraja na laptopu, zar ne? Zar zaista neko veruje u te filmske gluposti? Međutim, vi kada odslušate njihove konvencije o tome, oni uporno koriste reč cyber kriminalci. A zna se ko su kriminalci? To su neki odmetnici. Grupa odmetnika. To je malo čudno, jer jedini koji bi bili u stanju da tako nešto izvedu su same tehnološke kompanije ili vojske. I sada upadamo u još veće podpitanje, a to je ko finansira vojske nego budžeti koji se pune upravo novcem korporacija. A te korporacije su ko drugi nego partneri Svetskog ekonomskog foruma. Pa ko je taj neprijatelj?
As we enter the third decade of the 21st century, humanity faces so many issues and questions that it's really hard to know what to focus on. So I would like to use the next 20 minutes to help us focus. Of all the different issues we face, 3 problems pose existential challenges to our species. These 3 existential challenges are nuclear war, ecological collapse, and technological disruption. We should focus on them. Now, nuclear war and ecological collapse are already familiar threats, so let me spend some time explaining the less familiar threat posed by technological disruption. In Davos, we hear so much about the enormous promises of technology, and these promises are certainly real, but technology might also disrupt human society and the very meaning of human life in numerous ways, ranging from the creation of a global useless class to the rise of data colonialism and of digital dictatorships. First, we might face upheavals on the social and economic level. Automation will soon eliminate millions upon millions of jobs, and while new jobs will certainly be created, it is unclear whether people will be able to learn the necessary new skills fast enough. Suppose you're a 50-year-old truck driver, and you just lost your job to a self-driving vehicle. Now, there are new jobs in designing software or in teaching yoga to engineers. But how does a 50-year-old truck driver reinvent himself or herself as a software engineer or as a yoga teacher? And people will have to do it not just once, but again and again throughout their lives, because the automation revolution will not be a single watershed event following which the job market will settle down into some new equilibrium. Rather, it will be a cascade of ever bigger disruptions, because AI is nowhere near its full potential. All jobs will disappear, new jobs will emerge, but then the new jobs will rapidly change and vanish. Whereas in the past, humans has had to struggle against exploitation, in the 21st century, the really big struggle will be against irrelevance. And it's much worse to be irrelevant than to be exploited. Those who fail in the struggle against irrelevance would constitute a new useless class. People who are useless, not from the viewpoint of their friends and family, of course, but useless from the viewpoint of the economic and political system. And this useless class will be separated by an ever-growing gap from the ever more powerful elite.
Ovo je odličan trenutak da zaustavimo na tren ovaj važan govor. Svako slovo ovih ljudi je presudna za budućnost naših porodica. Prestanimo da gubimo vreme na političare, spasioce i suvereniste, jer će nam deca postati beskorisna klasa. Priča o političarima je nevažna i trećerazredna. Oni su prvi na udaru četvrte industrijske revolucije. Kroz govor ćete shvatiti i zašto. Dakle, dotični gospodin Yuval Harari jasno je izgovorio da ćemo doći u situaciju da će ta, kako je naziva, beskorisna klasa još više da se odvoji od sve jače i jače elitne klase. Ovo je prvi i osnovni oksimoron globalista koji jasno pokazuje da je njihova ideja kontradiktorna. Poenta svake njihove priče je, pored održivog razvoja i agende 2030, je izjednačavanje ljudi. Oni koriste reč jednakost, jednakost, jednakost. Međutim, u govoru jasno vidimo da kako robotizacija bude napredovala, jednakost će postojati sve veća nejednakost. Zar ne? Pa koji je cilj svega? Osim pronalaska kompromisa među žednom elitom.
The AI revolution might create unprecedented inequality, not just between classes, but also between countries. In the 19th century, a few countries, like Britain and Japan, industrialized first, and they went on to conquer and exploit most of the world. If we aren't careful, the same thing will happen in the 21st century with AI. We are already in the midst of an AI arms race, with China and the USA leading the race, and most countries being left far, far behind. Unless we take action to distribute the benefits and power of AI between all humans, AI will likely create immense wealth in a few high-tech hubs, while other countries will either go bankrupt or will become exploited data colonies. Now, we aren't talking about a science fiction scenario of robots rebelling against humans. We are talking about far more primitive AI, which is nevertheless enough to disrupt the global balance. And what will happen to politics in your country in 20 years when somebody in San Francisco or in Beijing knows the entire medical and personal history of every politician, every judge, and every journalist in your country, including all their sexual escapades, all their mental weaknesses, and all their corrupt dealings? Will it still be an independent country, or will it become a data colony? When you have enough data, you don't need to send soldiers in order to control a country.
Ovo vam je jedan od osnovnih razloga dolaska Trumpa na vlast. Evo i zašto. Sjetite se, molim vas, da proverite i sami na sajtu Svetskog ekonomskog foruma ko su partneri i vidjet ćete da su apsolutno svi. Dakle, koju god američku korporaciju da pronađete, naći ćete je među partnerima. Ovaj forum je poput elitnog team buildinga, gde svi učestvuju da bi dogovarali poslove i videli gde su drugi, gde niko nikom ne veruje i svi gledaju sve kroz profit. Međutim, oni su se obavezali i na agendu 2030. koju su potpisali iz interesa. A potpisali su je iz interesa jer logično, mnogo veće pare leže u zameni čitavog energetskog sistema, novim, nego samo trenutna kupoprodaja energije u već postojećem, gde je cena prilično jeftina. I sada zašto Trump? Da bi američke korporacije kupile sebi 4 godine konsolidacije i stigli Kinu u 5G tehnologiji, setite se ko je bio najbolji, zar ne? Njima je trebao navodni predsjednik buntovnik koji će izaći iz Pariskog sporazuma, koji je Svetski ekonomski forum samo za klimatske promene, i kupiti sebi vreme da stigne Kinu. Dakle, ovo je sve jedna imperialističko-globalna igranka. Ništa se ne dešava slučajno.
Alongside inequality, the other major danger we face is the rise of digital dictatorships that will monitor everyone all the time. This danger can be stated in the form of a simple equation, which I think might be the defining equation of life in the 21st century. B times C times D equals R, which means biological knowledge multiplied by computing power multiplied by data equals the ability to hack humans, R. If you know enough biology and you have enough computing power and data, you can hack my body and my brain and my life, and you can understand me better than I understand myself. You can know my personality type, my political views, my sexual preferences, my mental weaknesses, my deepest fears and hopes. You know more about me than I know about myself. And you can do that not just to me, but to everyone. A system that understands us better than we understand ourselves can predict our feelings and decisions, can manipulate our feelings and decisions, and can ultimately make decisions for us. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people. We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. That's what we are. The power to hack human beings can, of course, be used for good purposes, like providing much better healthcare. But if this power falls into the hands of a 21st century Stalin, the result will be the worst totalitarian regime in human history, and we already have a number of applicants for the job of 21st century Stalin. Just imagine North Korea in 20 years, when everybody has to wear a biometric bracelet which constantly monitors your blood pressure, your heart rate, your brain activity, 24 hours a day. You listen to a speech on the radio by the great leader, and they know what you actually feel. You can clap your hands and smile, but if you're angry, they know you'll be in the gulag tomorrow morning. And if we allow the emergence of such total surveillance regimes, don't think that the rich and powerful in places like Davos will be safe. Just ask Jeff Bezos. In Stalin's USSR, the state monitored members of the communist elite more than anyone else. The same will be true of future total surveillance regimes. The higher you are in the hierarchy, the more closely you will be watched. Do you want your CEO or your president to know what you really think about them? So it's in the interest of all humans, including the elites, to prevent the rise of such digital dictatorships.
Ovde stižemo do onoga što stalno govorimo, a to je da će političari biti prvi na udaru. Dakle, o čemu ovaj čovek govori? Počinje od Staljina kao diktatora i na kraju završava u diktatorskoj tehnološkoj kontroli. Dakle, to se može sprečiti samo na dva načina. Tako što ćete naterati tehnološke, multitrilijonske korporacije da to ne rade, što je nemoguće, ili ćete jednostavno obrisati političku elitu i tako sprečiti ove zloupotrebe. Šta mislite da će na kraju da izaberu? Mislim da se svi slažemo. Broj 2.
Now, even if we indeed prevent the establishment of digital dictatorships, the ability to hack humans might still undermine the very meaning of human freedom. Because as humans will rely on AI to make more and more decisions for us, authority will shift from humans to algorithms. And this is already happening. Already today, billions of people trust the Facebook algorithm to tell us what is new. The Google algorithm tells us what is true. Netflix tells us what to watch, and the Amazon and Alibaba algorithms tell us what to buy. In the not so distant future, similar algorithms might tell us where to work and whom to marry, and also decide whether to hire us for a job, whether to give us a loan, and whether the central bank should raise the interest rate. And if you ask why you will not given a loan, or why the bank didn't raise the interest rate, the answer will always be the same. Because the computer says no. And since the limited human brain lacks sufficient biological knowledge, computing power, and data, humans will simply not be able to understand the computer's decisions. So even in supposedly free countries, humans are likely to lose control over our own lives and also lose the ability to understand public policy. Already now, how many humans really understand the financial system? Maybe 1%, to be very generous. In a couple of decades, the number of humans capable of understanding the financial system will be exactly 0. Now, we humans are used to thinking about life as a drama of decision-making. What will be the meaning of human life when most decisions are taken by algorithms? We don't even have philosophical models to understand such an existence. The usual bargain between philosophers and politicians is that philosophers have a lot of fanciful ideas, And politicians patiently explain that they lack the means to implement these ideas. Now we are in an opposite situation. We are facing philosophical bankruptcy. The twin revolutions of infotech and biotech are now giving politicians and business people the means to create heaven or hell, but the philosophers are having trouble conceptualizing what the new heaven and the new hell will look like. And that's a very dangerous situation. If we fail to conceptualize the new heaven quickly enough, we might be easily misled by naive utopias. And if we fail to conceptualize the new hell quickly enough, we might find ourselves entrapped there with no way out. Finally, technology might disrupt not just our economy and politics and philosophy, but also our biology. In the coming decades, AI and biotechnology will give us godlike abilities to re-engineer life and even to create completely new life forms. We are about to enter a new era of inorganic life shaped by intelligent design. Our intelligent design is going to be the new driving force of the evolution of life. And in using our new divine powers of creation, we might make mistakes on a cosmic scale. In particular, governments, corporations, and armies are likely to use technology to enhance human skills that they need, like intelligence and discipline, while neglecting other human skills, like compassion, artistic sensitivity, and spirituality. The result might be a race of humans who are very intelligent and very disciplined, but lack compassion, lack artistic sensitivity, and lack spiritual depth.
Ovo je jedan od osnovnih razloga zašto sam izabrao ovaj govor. Pazite, ovo se dešava zvanično u Davosu. I ovaj čovjek izgovara ovakve stvari, tačnije one stvari o kojima mi pričamo već dosta dugo godina unazad i koje se zovu teorije zavere. Pa me interesuje da li oni koji sumnjaju u sve te priče, da li slušajući ovog čoveka i videći odakle govori i gde se nalazi, na kojoj konferenciji, i dalje veruju da sve ovo što se priča su zavere. Dakle, ne postoje zavere. Svaka reč izgovorena na ovom govoru, a njega sam namerno izabrao jer ne sadrži samo robotske priče njihove već ustaljene po agendi, već i ovu stranu scenarija koju mi nazivamo teorija zavere. Dakle, svaka stvar izgovorena će se desiti i mi kao čovečanstvo ćemo zaista doći do tog trenutka da ćemo potpuno izgubiti duhovno, jer hodamo samo i isključivo za interesom i kapitalom. Što je tužno.
Of course, this is not a prophecy. These are just possibilities. Technology is never deterministic. In the 20th century, people used industrial technology to build very different kinds of societies. Fascist dictatorships, communist regimes, liberal democracies. The same thing will happen in the 21st century. AI and biotech will certainly transform the world, but we can use them to create very different kinds of societies. And if you're afraid of some of the possibilities I've mentioned, you can still do something about it. But to do something effective, we need global cooperation. All the three existential challenges we face are global problems that demand global solutions. Whenever any leader says something like, "My country first," we should remind that leader that no nation can prevent nuclear war or stop ecological collapse by itself. And no nation can regulate AI and bioengineering by itself. Almost every country will say, hey, we don't want to develop killer robots or to genetically engineer human babies. We are the good guys. But we can't trust our rivals not to do it. So we must do it first. If we allow such an arms race to develop in fields like AI and bioengineering, it doesn't really matter who wins the arms race. The loser will be humanity. Unfortunately, just when global cooperation is more needed than ever before, some of the most powerful leaders and countries in the world are now deliberately undermining global cooperation. Leaders like the US president tell us that there is an inherent contradiction between nationalism and globalism, and that we should choose nationalism and reject globalism. But this is a dangerous mistake. There is no contradiction between nationalism and globalism, because nationalism isn't about hating foreigners. Nationalism is about loving your compatriots. And in the 21st century, in order to protect the safety and the future of your compatriots, you must cooperate with foreigners. So in the 21st century, good nationalists must be also globalists. Now, globalism doesn't mean establishing a global government, abandoning all national traditions, or opening the border to unlimited immigration. Rather, globalism means a commitment to some global rules. Rules that don't deny the uniqueness of each nation, but only regulate relations between nations. And a good model is the Football World Cup. The World Cup is a competition between nations, and people often show fierce loyalty to their national team. But at the same time, the World Cup is also an amazing display of global harmony. France can't play football against Croatia unless the French and Croatians agree on the same rules for the game. And that's globalism in action. If you like the World Cup, you're already a globalist. Now, hopefully, nations could agree on global rules, not just for football, but also for how to prevent ecological collapse, how to regulate dangerous technologies, and how to reduce global inequality. How to make sure, for example, that AI benefits Mexican textile workers and not only American software engineers. Now, of course, this is going to be much more difficult than football, but not impossible. Because the impossible, well, we have already accomplished the impossible. We have already escaped the violent jungle in which we humans have lived throughout history. For thousands of years, humans lived under the law of the jungle in a condition of omnipresent war. The law of the jungle said that for every 2 nearby countries, there is a plausible scenario that they will go to war against each other next year. Under this law, peace meant only the temporary absence of war. When there was peace between, say, Athens and Sparta, or France and Germany, it meant that now they are not at war, but next year they might be. And for thousands of years, people had assumed that it was impossible to escape this law.
Evo još jednog odličnog pokazatelja da Svetski ekonomski forum samo koristi priču o brizi prema nama, običnim radnicima, da bi dobili na etičkom nivou, da bi se predstavili kao navodni društveni projekat. I prikrila činjenica da su oni isključivo korporacijski team building, što su oduvek i bili. Harari navodi kako je globalizam spasao svet od ratova. Ovo svaki razuman čovek zna da nije istina. Istina je da je svet samo ušao u, nazovimo ga, mirniji period, isključivo zato što su ratovi, kao takvi, jedan zastareli način imperijalizma ili bogaćenja. Šta će vam rat kada vi već posjedujete čitave ekonomije nerazvijenih srednjih i malih zemalja? Rat je U tom smislu samo bespotrebno trošenje para. Nasuprot tome, tamo gdje vladajuće sile nisu držale konce u svojim rukama poput SSSR-a, Jugoslavije, Iraka, Sirije, Libana, Afganistana i mnogih drugih, ratovi su se i tekako događali. Primetili ste kako je iskritikovao američku politiku ili čitajte američkog predsjednika, ali zanimljivo, nije pomenuo niti jedan rat koji je Amerika vodila, a znamo da su oni poznati po ratovima. Kada budete čuli nastavak govora, shvatit ćete zašto sam ovo rekao i bit će vam kristalno jasno da ovo nije svetski ekonomski forum, već zapadni ekonomski forum. Dakle, globalizam ne postoji. Globalizam je farsa. Ista stvar, drugo pakovanje. Uvek je i uvek će postojati iživljavanje jačeg nad slabijem. Imperijalizam. Dakle, ovo vam je još jedan pokazatelj da kada se Harari ljuti na svet, on se zapravo ljuti na partnere, američke partnere Svetskog ekonomskog foruma, što su opet kupili sebi 4 godine da se izdignu na lestvici najveće vodeće sile. Jer je to suština sveta i nikakav globalizam ne postoji. Niti je postojao, niti će postojati. Oni postoje isključivo iz razloga uspostavljanja novih biznisa, špijunaže, kontrole i pokazivanje moći u krajnju ruku.
But in the last few decades, humanity has managed to do the impossible, to break the law and to escape the jungle. We have built the rule-based, liberal global order that, despite many imperfections, has nevertheless created the most prosperous and most peaceful era in human history. The very meaning of the word peace has changed. Peace no longer means just the temporary absence of war. Peace now means the implausibility of war. There are many countries in the world which you simply cannot imagine going to war against each other next year, like France and Germany. There are still wars in some parts of the world. I come from the Middle East, so believe me, I know this perfectly well. But it shouldn't blind us to the overall global picture. We are now living in a world in which war kills fewer people than suicide, and gunpowder is far less dangerous to your life than sugar. Most countries, with some notable exceptions like Russia, don't even fantasize about conquering and annexing their neighbors.
Opala, dakle dovoljan je 1 sekund vašeg govora da vam uruši čitav integritet i autoritet. Dakle, ovom izjavom da je Rusija ta koja u moderno doba jedina napada i osvaja druge zbog jednog malecnog Krima, koji je strateška vojna pozicija jedne velike sile, a pritom čitav svet zna ko je taj koji upada u druge zemlje i osvaja, vam govori po drugi put da ovo nije svetski, nego zapadni ekonomski forum i da globalizam ne postoji. Postoji samo imperijalizam. Ili vam oni i mi, elita i mi. Dok god to ne budemo shvatili, mi nećemo biti u stanju da preuzmemo stvari u svoje ruke i da promenimo svet u korist običnih ljudi.
Unfortunately, we've gotten so used to this wonderful situation that we take it for granted and we are therefore becoming extremely careless. Instead of doing everything we can to strengthen the fragile global order, countries neglect it and even deliberately undermine it.
Dakle, da rezimiramo priču, a nastavit ćemo istraživanje Svetskog ekonomskog foruma. Rezime bi bio vrlo čudna istina, a to je da svetom ne vlada globalizam protiv koga se mi navodno borimo, podržavajući suverenizam, već vlada suverenizam koji se nekada zvao imperijalizam, promenjen u smislu i obliku da više nisu kraljevi, vladari i političari ti najmoćniji, već je sistem toliko kompleksan i umrežen sa bezbroj milijardera i uticajnih tehnoloških giganata, novih tehnologija, da postaje navodno globalan, ali i dalje ostaje u svojoj biti imperialistički, suveren, na način novog modernog doba i novih tehnologija, koje će biti, sigurni budite u to, iskorišćeni u interesu moćnika i kapitala. Ali važno je da nastavimo sa proučavanjem ovog, jer je ovo nama od presudne važnosti zbog naše dece. Dakle, znajući kuda svet ide, postoje velike šanse da naša pokolenja ne budu ta beskorisna klasa. Do sljedećeg videa. Volim vas fes. Pozdrav, dobri ljudi.